Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sweet Combat Season 1, Episode 29. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, tournament did not play out the way I thought it would. It's really interesting developments all around, where first and foremost, Zhao Mi ends up losing her match against Wu Ji. In fact, he ends up breaking her right arm in the process. You're like, Jesus. Because, like, no one was prepared for him because he's using Krav Maga. Like, some of its moves borderline on fouls, but it still is allowed in the grand scheme of things. So it's like, obviously, Zhao Mi, like, wasn't ready for that match and facing off against that opponent. I mean, obviously, Tien didn't have enough data to, like help make that match play out differently. So it's not like anyone in the crowd was cheering for him. Like, all throughout his matches, everyone booed him. So Zhao Mi ends up losing, and he's moving on to the next round. Obviously, it's our last finalist. It's Yanan, Wu Ji, and Queen herself. But at the same time, we're finding out what Queen learned last step. Well, because actually she goes up and wins her match in like 7 seconds. But I thought she wasn't going to win it because whatever it was that Uncle G's widow told her, and we find out what it was. She came up with this cockamamie story about how someone like threatened Uncle G, and it's like, right, he would never back down from him, but he wouldn't throw a match. So some people beat him up and even kind of suggested that Tien's father was part of all of this. And it's like, dude, this lady was already on like thin ice. I'm not trying to justify it, but you can be like, okay, so it already sucks that you did insurance fraud for the purposes of, right, you're looking after your family. I mean, now you're almost like bringing that into question. Maybe you had the best of intentions back then. It's super effed up because that caused such an issue. I mean, once again, even the lady she was talking to a couple episodes ago, isn't it kind of messed up? Didn't you kind of destroy a dude's life? It's like, yeah, he was unlucky. So like that perspective already puts a massive strike against you. But now you have this cockamamie story that you're trying to make it seem like Tien's father was even more duplicitous, saying like, right, it wasn't even an accident. He knew that he was injured, still went through the fight anyway with the intention of killing, making it seem like it wasn't an accident. And that's the sucky thing. And you's gonna believe it because why wouldn't she? It's like, hey, you're Uncle G's wife. What Uncle G meant to me, you would have no reason to lie to me. And then also on top of that, we find out the person that set this all up was her grandfather. I was thinking for a second, like, there's no way he's behind all this. I'm like, there's no way. Nope, he super is. I was like, dude, I talked about it previously. I was like, wow, I was surprised. Like, they're going in a vastly different direction with that character. Like, he at least seemed very concerned about his grandchildren and stuff like that. Yeah, it's about following the family business, but he's like very protective of you. He cares. Once again, in the webtoon, she pretty much has her grandfather wrapped around her finger, from what we can tell. From like, at least there's like a one gag thing where he was like yelling at her, but then she gives him a massage and he kind of calms down. Like, Queen in the webtoon knew how to like play her grandfather like a fiddle, but it is the situation of like they're going to the extreme lengths with him, and this one making him super duplicitous. I'm like, bro, that is disgusting. Like, the fact of the matter is that neither one of you feel bad about you're making things worse for Tien. You're making things worse for you because he's thinking like, well, this is for the greater good. I'm hurt. Once again, the whole argument previously of hurt now so I can save you from hurt later. But it's like, it's not even about Tien even more. Like, it's not even really about him. It's about forcing your granddaughter down the path you want. And as long as she's with Tien, it's not even about like, oh, he's going to drag you down or he's going to take advantage of you. His feelings for her are real, but none of that matters. It doesn't matter. It's about her doing what you want. I'm like, I need to understand, like, because I've just not justified it, but I'm like, I'm trying to understand it from his perspective of why he's going so hard in the paint to destroy the relationship. I'll go back to my point previously. You've done so much to destroy their relationship, also destroy her relationship with MMA, which is so messed up considering the fact that Tien went so above and beyond to try and protect your relationship with your granddaughter, and you still don't even know that. I hope Zhao ends up telling him that so he can feel extra guilty. But like, he acts so nonchalant about it later on. Like, we'll get to it when we get to it. But it's like, that's evil, dude. That's all kinds. That's some wicked step parent type of stuff. It's like, I mean, it's not the exact same, but it's like, yo, you give the wicked, you give the evil stepmom from Cinderella a good run for her money to some extent. It's like, that's not just messed up, that is evil, like unnecessarily evil. And that's why I'm like, what happened that drove you to the point, like, once again, it seems like he's so pragmatic about stuff versus like not having the emotional stuff. It's what I've talked about, like maybe like the moment his son died and his daughter-in-law died, it made him so cold-hearted that's his view in the world. Like I said, he's so pragmatic and not willing to count the, like, he doesn't recognize what he's doing to his granddaughter. He's thinking this will, hey, it'll help her in the long run. It's like, you are destroying her, you are breaking her, you are hurting her. Your grandson literally asked you not to hurt her anymore, and what did you do? You still hurt her, you know? That's, and once again, and also that Uncle G's wife is even worse, because it's not like she did this for money, because now you're almost like, right, there's no way that he hadn't, like, that her grandfather had anything to do with the Uncle G fight with Tien's dad, like making the thing go down the way it did. Like, he didn't set all that up, right? Like when she was saying the insurance stuff, like, did he give her that idea? Because it's like, how did they connect? Did she come asking for money first and then they connected in that way? Why she can't, what, because she's getting like $3 million from him to do this. So the question then becomes, did he reach out to her because of the whole Uncle G thing? It's like, right, this was already a sore enough spot. Let me push the pressure point even more to finally break you and break her off from this kid Tien as well as MMA. And once again, it makes her doubly evil too, because once again, this is another massive strike. You've already done enough to destroy one family, but she doesn't care about that. Like I said, she was brushing off like, oh, he was unlucky, and now you're continuing to destroy a dead man's reputation. It's like, well, he's dead, who cares? It's like, you should care because you're destroying a young lady who is you're destroying the two victims in all this. Like, Tien is unaware of the lies you're continuing to spread about his dad. He already has such issues that he already, like, even admits he was a little pissed at his dad, a little pissed at his mom, and it's like, it wasn't even his dad's fault. Like, it was all like a setup, and now you're making it worse, besmirching his name even more, and Tien's completely unaware of this, and now you have to contend with this because she already knows, because Tien made it clear about everything about how he felt about it, and I think because of that, she doesn't want to tell him the truth. I think she doesn't want to ruin things, or you already have a complicated enough relationship when it comes to the memory of your father. I don't want to take that away from you, especially considering how much. I think it's also the element of she's taking on that on her own, because she doesn't want to talk about it, because if she talks about it, it just makes it that much more real. So she's bottling it up, and she breaks up with Tien. It's just like, right, I can't move past what your father did to my Uncle G, and the fact is that I can't look past the fact is you are his son. And she just walks away, and she ends up going missing for like a whole day. She never went home. She ends up like visiting Uncle G's grave, but by the time her brother tries to find her there, she was already gone. She already left flowers and everything. And it's just like, once again, her grandfather's coming from the perspective of, I am heartless, but this is the only way I can get you to drop that kid, drop Tien, as well as give up MMA. It's like, both things that mean so much to her. You know, she's grown and found her own footing. She found the one thing, and like the two comfort zones in her life, you took that away from her. Arguably, you took this is the third strike, because you took the other comfort zone away from her, like Uncle G. Let's not forget, you also got rid of the one thing she had left to remember him by, with that like toy bunny. So it's like, you've done so much the mental and emotional damage, because he doesn't care, because as long as she never finds out, then it's all going to be fine. But it's like, he doesn't show, in some moments, it does seem like previously when he's done stuff, he does seem like he's struggling a little bit with what he's done, but there's almost like this next level of detachment of like, he doesn't feel that bad. Like, right, later on when Zhao is talking to his sister and they have that whole conversation about, hey, what are you going to do? And she said she's going to study abroad. And it's like, whoa, what about MMA? What about Tien? And she just doesn't say anything. And because Zhao had said, like, hey, don't be mad at sis when she comes home. Like, let's be sensitive towards her. She's in a very fragile state. And their grandfather has the nerve to try and use that against Zhao when he was like, whoa, what are you doing? And he's like, whoa, we need to be respectful of your sister's decision. Isn't that what you said? I'm like, I could say it, bastard. You are gaslighting your grandchildren. That is horrendous. You know, and acting like, oh, I have no idea what happened to her. Oh, well, I respect your decision to do this. Because for her, it's like, she doesn't want to be at the school. it's kind of just like Tien's relationship with martial arts. Because of it, like it was just so tarnished in his mind, he hated it. And the same thing's here. It's like, right, like this thing I latched onto that became my foundation, it's also connected to the person I like loved and cared. But so it's just like all that, and just she doesn't want to be at that school anymore because it's just going to be a reminder of being around Tien. It's just going to be a reminder of everything, and it's just she wants to walk away from it. So it's easier just to run. The similar thing, it's not the exact same thing, but it is a situation of, this does eventually happen to Queen in the webtoon as well. Like, she has to start studying abroad just because of just, like, expanding her knowledge of the family business and stuff like that. So, I'm jumping ahead a little. Well, I'll go ahead and tie this all in with the tournament, because Yanan was trying to learn the Death Strike from her father. Even Guanyan was kind of suggesting she does that, but her father refuses, and it's because he was told by their master that women shouldn't learn it, because he's like, the moment I taught your mom that, because I didn't listen to my master, she started getting sicker and sicker, which Guanyan's like, there's no correlation between that. That's just kind of like sad, terrible timing, but that's why he feels such remorse about it. It's like, I can teach Guanyan, I can teach Tien, because he's like, but he associates it like, if I teach that technique to my daughter, it's like, even if it's not rational, he still believes like maybe she'll get sick or something. Like the universe will punish her, just like it punished her mom for whatever reason. So that's his justification for not wanting to teach Yanan. It's like, you're the last thing I have in this world. I'm not going to like take the risk. He feels personally responsible for her mom dying at such a young age. It's like, I'm not going to let that happen to my baby girl type of situations. So ultimately, Yanan goes into the fight, but she's already got so much on her mind. The fact is, it's like, right, she found out about Queen and Tien breaking up. The fact is, no one knows where Queen is, and she's worried. So she kind of rushed into that match because she wanted to get revenge for Xiaomi, plus also her best friend is missing. It's just, there's a lot there. So she ends up getting injured during the fight. So she ends up losing, which I brought up previously in the webtoon. I brought this up last episode, but in the webtoon, Moon Young, the character Yanan is based after, is the one who wins the tournament. Once again, it's very different circumstances, but kind of similarly, like, Wuju ends up winning the match by default because Queen defaulted. She forfeited because she never showed up. Similar thing happens in the webtoon. Queen doesn't actually get to participate in a tournament because she ends up having to drop out. I want to say there might have been like a preliminary, like an exhibition match she took part in. That's her only part of the tournament. But by the time, like, because of like business related stuff to her family business, she couldn't like get away to participate in the tournament. So that's why she herself had to drop out. That's why the final match is Moon Young versus Hieshin. So once again, similar results in some capacities, but obviously, like, we take a different route to get there. And obviously the inclusion of Wu Ji, who didn't even want the trophy because he didn't even get to earn it. Once again, kind of similar to how Moon Young kind of felt like, oh, I only won the match because Hieshin ran out the ring to help with her brother's situation, so I kind of feel weird about winning the tournament this way. So, and jumping ahead a little bit, I think Queen's going to suffer some ramifications because everyone's going to feel like she let them down. Because when you see the end of the episode, a whole bunch of students are staring at her. It's like, right, you let the school down. But to be fair, she's transferring to, and just for her, it's just extra reason. Like, maybe that's also another reason why she wants to leave. Because it's like, I'm tired of all of this. I'm dealing with all of this. She's bottling it all up. And on top of that, she feels like she let everyone down because everyone's looking and pointing at her. Like, the fact is, no one's going to know what she's going through, but all they're going to care about is, hey, she disappointed us. She let us down. You're Queen. You should have been here, but you failed us. Like, she's probably going to have to deal with all of that probably. So, which is so heartbreaking. There's so much to talk about. Okay. So first and foremost, circling over to Xiaomi, which I think is kind of pretty neat. Obviously, like, she's going to be in her cast for like a month, and she's kind of bummed about the whole thing. But I appreciate Hao being there looking after her. He's like, right, I'll do whatever you need me to do. Like, what you tell me what to do, and I'll do it. He's like, if I fail to like meet up to your standards, you can remove me as a friend. And so it's like, right, she's like, oh, I want this juice. Oh, can you give me, like, is there a back scratch? She's like, oh, like, do you want me to scratch your back? And he does. She's like, oh, to the left, a little higher. And then she starts thinking to herself, it's like, does he, and she doesn't finish the thought, but it starts crossing her mind, like, does he like me or something? And so obviously Yanan shows up and kind of laughs and ridicules her for like getting beat up, and I love that the nurse had to come in and stop them when they were like about to duke it out, and they're like hugging each other. It was like Xiao Mi was like, oh, thanks for coming to visit me, bestie. They're trying to pretend like everything's okay, but Guanyan later on sees what Yanan was doing. It's like, right, teasing her a little bit, because it's like, hey, she never lost so heavily before, so it's like, right, I wanted to use that as motivation, like picking on her a little bit just to perk her spirits up and motivate her to get better faster, and like not to let this weigh her down. So, but it also seems like Yanan and Guanyan seem to be in a much better place too, because obviously he's worried about her when it comes to like this upcoming match and stuff. There was also the situation of like, right, she ends up being hungry and he gives her an apple. He's like, yeah, thanks to you, like I'm carrying around apples all the time. And she's like, am I still like the apple? And he's like, you've never left my, basically it was kind of something along the lines of kind of like, you never left my side or something like that. She's like, well, I'm not sharing this apple with you. I don't feel comfortable doing that yet, but we can go to the coffee shop. And they have this cute moment where he's talking about her hair. It's like, oh, it's super short. She's like, oh, like, yeah, and what about it? He's like, no, it's very pretty. She's like, you have a weird aesthetic choices, don't you? You have very like weird aesthetic standards. And he's like, yeah. He's like, thank God I do, because he's like, you're already hard enough to pursue, but if I had I could not compete if you had like 1,000 other suitors. And it's just them being so, looking at each other, smiling and being adorable. It's like, stop it, you two, stop it, you know? And even later on, when like her dad is helping her after she lost her match to Wuju and like stretching her out, and she's in pain, so much pain, and then like once Guanyan comes in, she stops saying anything, and it's like, oh, look at that. Like, I guess because she was trying to stay strong in front of him, trying to pretend like everything's fine. But even him like getting close to her, checking her face, he's like, no, you'll be good in a couple of days. Like, does it hurt? She's like, it hurts a lot. She was kind of trying to be more vulnerable with him. But it's like, no, you're okay. He's like, as long as you're okay, like, that's all I wanted to make sure. Also to let you know, if you talk to Queen, let her know to be careful. Wuji wanted to fight her, so he could still surprise and attack her out of anywhere. It's like, okay. And then he left, and she's like, wait, it's kind of like, raining. Do you want to take one of our umbrellas? He said, no, I'll catch a cab. But then she's pacing back and forth. It's like, oh, man, it's raining pretty hard. Should I catch up to him and try and make sure he has an umbrella? It's like, oh, man, what if he gets sick? I'm like, look at you being so concerning and sweet like that. It's just so adorable. Once again, she's not too used to wearing her heart on her sleeves, but when it happens, it's so adorable. But sadly, before she could go after him, because I'm sure he got home safe, he probably also did run there, but he probably like lied to her and say like a cab just so she wouldn't be concerned, because he's done that before, like lied just so she wouldn't have to worry about things. But she runs into you, and you won't talk about anything, and she's like threatening, like, yo, Queen, if you don't talk, like, I'm gonna end our friendship. And it's like, what's going on? Like, whatever it is, you don't have to bottle it up. And in that moment, she breaks down. It's different circumstances, but if I remember correctly, basically when Jaegu like basically pushed away not only Dao Dao but also Queen, I believe she went to Mu Young's place and broke down. I think it's a similar thing. Once again, Dao Dao reacted the way she did, which led to her getting like robbed and beat up by those hoodlums. And then also in this case, like, Queen went to Mu Young and broke down, like, tears. It's like the only time in the entire series you see her break down like that. Like, we've seen her cry before, like, because she was even like a tear was shedding down her face the moment, like, well, I mean, aside from like stuff when she was a kid, but like Queen as she is now, where she kind of becomes, where she appears cold and stuff, you never got to see her that emotional except in that moment. And you see it here, like, you never, like, she's cried, she's been sad, but this is the moment where she like fully breaks down, because like she, in that moment, like, she still doesn't open up to Yanan, but it was just like she opened up the floodgates and it just wouldn't stop. So at the same time, obviously, like, Tien's going through it. Obviously, he's heartbroken about the breakup, but he's also worried about Queen, but he doesn't know what to do about it. And so his siblings are saying, like, right, they're talking like, right, bro's pretty sad. Is it about Queen? It's like, and the little sister's like, go get your test that you failed. He's like, what? I went through a lot of trouble to like hide that from bro, and it's like you need to show it to him, because if he's angry about your test, that means he's less sad about Queen. And it's like, and Tien overhears all this and he kind of like smiles, because it's like, right, my siblings are doing a lot to try and perk me up. He's like, right, I won't be sad anymore. They're like, really? He's like, I promise I'm gonna get my act together. I appreciate you guys worrying about me, and I'm sorry I'm making you worry about me. So they made a pinky promise for everything to be okay. And he's like, right, make sure you also bring that test of yours that you failed. And he's like, gulp. And she's like, yeah, go ahead and get it. But then he hugs them, because it's like, it's such a sweet moment, them hugging him back too. It's like, you know, they've got each other no matter what happens. So really quickly too, there's also the Xiaomi thing of her hanging out with Hao, and they're playing computer games, and she's just like chastising him, because like basically to compensate for the fact that she's only got one arm, they're both playing on the same keyboard. So he's using two hands, she's using one, and she's complaining about his playing style. He's like, fine, I'll do it by myself. And she's still backseat gaming. I don't talk about it enough, but I love that they see fourth wall break moments, because the webtoon was never fourth wall breaky, but there's a few moments where the show is, and he just looks at the camera, he's like, women, they're so unreasonable sometimes, and get back to it. And so I just thought that was adorable. And to the point, his hands are a little messed up. You know, she's like, what are you, like, because she was chastising him, saying like, what, did you just recover from a stroke or something? Why are you so terrible at this? And then also like, they're going to go train taekwondo. Her arm isn't fully healed. His hands are a little messed up. She's like, oh, you suffered a little skin damage from the keyboard. Who cares? You know, and she like ready to get to training, and she slips on a ball, and he grabs her, and it's a very beautiful, cute moment. She's like, why'd you grab me? He was like, I was just afraid you were going to fall. But then like he dropped her trying to get his phone. But yeah, they rush off because they found out that Yu came back to the school, and that's where the episode ultimately ends. So it's a lot to kind of take in. I was bringing all this stuff up earlier about how evil her grandfather is. I guess that foot volley thing will be the last time we ever see Shiwei. I don't know if he's ever going to pop up in the show again. Like, now that her grandfather's kind of got her more in line with where he wants her to be, he might push to Shiwei. So we might, now that I've spoken that in existence, which is so interesting. Once again, it's not like this is week to week. It's just the episodes have already been out for years. But it's still probably a thing of Shiwei will probably pop up at least one more time or before the end, just for that purpose. Like I said, once he kind of like does one last thing in the webtoon, like he disappears. Which obviously we got a close somewhat adaptation of that in the regards of him doing something shady and crappy, but like the whole circumstance revolving around it, it's like very, very different. So I'm that's why I'm curious if the foot volley thing will be the last, but I doubt it. Like I said, where things currently are, her grandfather will probably push that like arranged marriage a lot more. So like I said, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.